Alright, well, let's just jump right in by prefacing this video by saying I am making this video chiefly in the interest of fun. Maybe not fun for you, but fun for me. I had the idea to make this video as like a stupid little gag, so I hope you will kind of take that into consideration before you absolutely eviscerate me in the comments. So, with that being said, I'm going to attempt to kind of dissect a very, and I mean very, generic approach to hand-to-hand combat between two human beings. So, having said that, let me just also mention that I am in no way an expert on hand-to-hand combat. I have never been in a fight, not a real one anyways. I've had a couple sparring matches with some friends, but never anything that went too serious. I am not athletic in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure most of you have already realized that. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that very well, I'm sure. I have no actual training or education on the matter of hand-to-hand combat, whether that be martial arts or otherwise. So you might be asking, where does this guy get off? What does he think he's doing? Fair, is what I would respond to that by saying. That's kind of the point of this video. I thought it would be fun to honestly and sincerely admit that I am an absolute ignorant individual when it comes to this topic, but still try and take my general knowledge of some kind of somewhat relevant topics and attempt to kind of glean some sort of insight. Basically, make an attempt to tackle the subject matter without actually being educated on it. Now, you might be thinking, people do that all the time. Like, all the time. That's the internet in general. It's just people who have no idea what they're talking about, talking out their ass. And you might be thinking, so what's the difference with what you're doing right now? The difference is, I am admitting to that before ever starting to discuss the matter. So I am in total candor admitting right now I have no idea what I'm talking about. At least on paper. Like, as far as the general individual watching this is probably concerned, I have no titles, I have no merits, I have no education, no degrees, no certificates, nothing to prove that I know what I'm talking about. So, with all of those qualifiers out of all taken care of, let's start to discuss this. So, the first thing I believe we need to discuss when talking about hand-to-hand combat, how to fight, is really the meat of the matter. How to have a fight and win a fight. How to be successful in a fight. The first thing you need to do before anything else is assess yourself. And actually, before I even get to that, I'm going to say, again, remember the beginning of the video. I'm an idiot. I have no idea what I'm talking about. And remember 3 things that we're going to continue to come back to throughout the entire discussion. We are going to analyze, make a plan. Maybe 4 things. We'll just say adapt. Analyze, make a plan, adapt. Oh, the 4th thing is respect our opponent. And when I say respect our opponent, I don't mean like, you know, like pleasantries or discipline or being honorable. That's not what I mean when I say respect. I mean take them as a significant threat to you. No matter how confident you are, no matter how big the skill gap is, no matter how much bigger you are than them, you need to remember to respect them as an opponent. And I don't mean that, again, I don't mean that because you should be respectful of the opponent. I mean it because the second you believe you have won, the second you begin to get overconfident, you are losing. You have already given your opponent an edge. Because many times, if a combatant is overconfident, then they will convey that in their body language, in their actions, in their strikes. And if an opponent can understand that, if an opponent has the ability to read that, whether through your body language or the strikes or your stance, posture, whatever, then they will probably be able to capitalize on that if they're smart. If they know what they're doing, they might be able to take advantage of that. So don't be too arrogant in a fight is basically what I mean when I say respect your opponent or have respect. It doesn't mean be respectful, you know, or like don't use curse words kind of thing. Like, I don't mean any of that crap. I don't care. I mean, don't be arrogant. Don't be overconfident. Respect your opponent. Respect their strikes. Respect their posturing. Respect the fight. Because until you have won, you have not won. And that might sound stupid, but it's important, and it's simple and it's important. Until you have won, you have not won. The fight is not over until it is over. Anywho, with that being said, we'll go back to the points. Analyze, make a plan, adapt, respect. And really the respect is actually like an overarching thing among the 3 pillars, because it should be a plan. Well, number 2 is make a plan, but it should be a sequence, rather, that you're going through. You want to do step 1, step 2, step 3. So, and you might not have to adapt. Sometimes you analyze the situation, make a plan, and then the plan is executed, and you're successful, and the fight is over. Yeah, sometimes that's just the way it works. Boring fights. That's what those are. Boring, quick fights. I want to say something else to the like effect of the beginning of the video. I'm not even like a fan of like UFC or boxing or anything like that. I don't watch like sports at all. When I say that I am totally ignorant in this matter, I mean like I've been to a gym maybe like twice in my adult life when I wasn't forced to through high school kind of stuff. You really gotta understand where I'm coming from. I am a basement nerd, basically. not living in a basement. You know, I have my own apartment, but I digress. Back to the discussion. So, analyze. Analyzing is important. A big part of fighting is obviously the violence, but if you want to fight smart, you have to use your brain. A lot of people rely on their bodies, and they get by just fine that way. But if you want to really be successful in a fight, you have to use your mind. It's unfortunate, because a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to just rely on their bodies. But if you entirely rely on your body, then if your opponent uses their mind, they might end up beating you. They might. Not necessarily going to happen every time. Could just be that you just have so much body that doesn't matter. You still win. That's just cold hard facts. And a lot of people are probably going to think that that's just the way it goes most of the time even. I have no idea. Again, I'm ignorant. But, anywho, analyze is the important thing. So, first thing you want to analyze is yourself. You want to analyze your physical capabilities, what you're capable of, your limits, what you can successfully do, what you can do consistently, and what you cannot do. What you cannot do is going to end up largely being your weaknesses. So you need to compensate for those weaknesses and protect those weaknesses. If you know you have a really weak jaw or you're really knocked out easy, you need to guard yourself. You know, keep your guard so that you don't take those hits that knock you out. Now, is that going to protect you 100% of the time, just knowing you need to compensate for your weaknesses? No. And you need to be careful, too, because if you're overcompensating, or even just showing too much compensation, your opponent is going to see that, and they are going to be aware that you have a weakness and you are guarding it because you are fearful of that weakness being exploited. And if you are in that situation where your opponent has latched on to your weakness and they know what it is and they're going after it, you're in a bad spot because they're going to be seeking to exploit that weakness, and if you can't compensate for that weakness, they're probably going to be able to get it, whatever it is. Now, that might sound like goofy, technical, Pokemon-esque kind of bullshit. You know, like, whoa, I don't want that fire type getting me because I'm grass. You know, some dumb nerd shit. It's not what I mean. What I mean is just know your weaknesses. If you got a bum leg because you had a surgery once, you know, be wary of that, but also don't expose it too much, you know. Don't be limping, whatever. That being said, though, you can also fake weaknesses, and that is another good strategy. If you want to pretend to be vulnerable, you can get your opponent to latch on to that weakness and try to exploit it, and then counter. Once they have, you know, tried to engage you in that weakness, tried to exploit it, you can use that to your advantage and kind of flip them on their head, so to speak. Bait them in, really, is what you're doing in that circumstance. A lot of, to my understanding, a lot of boxers will do this by sort of, kind of, overconfidently exposing their chin. Letting the opponent see, you know, like, here's my jaw, here's my throat, go ahead, throw an uppercut, take me out. And they're doing that on purpose because they know that if they do this, there's really only one move their opponent is going to make, and it's going to be the one they want them to make. Because it's honestly just too, in that circumstance, it's too good to pass up. If you're quick enough to take advantage of someone who's baiting you, it's all over. You can hit that uppercut or land that strike and end the fight. But you got to be quick enough, and you gotta. It's really risky because that's what they want. They want you to go for that attack. So they're gonna have full advantage over you unless you're fast enough. So know your limits. Don't overextend in a fight. The other thing is stamina. When you're analyzing your abilities, you get winded really easily. Like, if you're a big husky guy like me, don't try and overdo it. Take a couple of actions at a time. Retreat, reset, rest. Give yourself a little bit of breathing room and reanalyze the situation, adapt how you need to, change your strategy, change your posture, change your, whatever. Now, the second thing you have to analyze, and I know we've already talked about a lot of things you need to analyze, but the second main thing you need to analyze is your opponent. The first thing you need to analyze when it comes to your opponent is how many are there. If it's one, great, we can keep the conversation going. If it is more than one, then we need to have an entirely different conversation. Because the first thing you need to understand about a fight with more than one person is that you're probably not going to win this fight. Even the best fighters the world has ever known still struggle to fight more than one combatant at a time. It's just the way it is. If more than one fighter is engaging you at the same time, yeah, it's just going to be really, really difficult for you to maintain that struggle, to maintain thoughts, patterns, blocking, grappling, knowing when to back out of the fight, knowing when to engage, which one to engage, because the fact of the matter is, the human body just really isn't great at attacking multiple targets. We've got two hands, so in theory, you can punch two people at the same time, but unfortunately, for the majority of us human beings, we're not ambidextrous, which means one of our hands is going to be significantly weaker than the other. And you can train against that. You can try and train your hands so that one of them is just as strong, or at least close to being as strong as the other. And in that situation, you're in a much better position to fight two people. But if you're like most people, and you don't do any active training to be ambidextrous, or to have your offhand be as strong as your main hand, your primary hand, your dominant hand, then it's just not going to be as strong, and you're going to have to be aware of that. That's why more often than not in fighting, as far as I know, again, asterisk, you will see that the offhand, the non-dominant hand, will be used to guard. It will be used to guard the vulnerable spots like the jaw, the chin, etc. That's mostly in boxing, admittedly, as far as I know, asterisk. But generals. I digress. Now that we've covered how many fighters, basically, if you really want to dive into the science behind fighting multiple opponents, go find a different video, for fuck's sake. Like, this is mostly a comedy video. Like, just, for people who actually know what they're talking about, actually know the subject matter, to just watch this video and laugh at my ignorance, because I'm probably just talking out my ass and blowing smoke up. You know, whatever. Ha ha ha. Pardon the yawning. I got the idea for this video at the very wrong time of a very early morning of a weeknight. I'm an idiot. What can I say? It's kind of the point of the video, though, isn't it? Anywho, how many opponents? Hopefully just one. Let's focus on that. Now, you need to focus on the size difference. How much bigger are they than you? Are they just heavier, or are they also taller? If they're taller, they might have better reach. Not necessarily might. It's pretty much yes, they will have better reach if they're taller. Just more wingspan, etc. So, you gotta be aware of that. That means they're going to punch you from distances further than you can punch them. And that is going to put you at a pretty big disadvantage, because they can safely make strikes at you from distances where you cannot counter strike them. Which means that you're probably going to need to adapt to a strategy where you can either get in closer or bait them to get in closer. So you're either going to have to take an extreme offensive and get in close, possibly deferred grappling if you have any kind of experience in that style of fighting, or you can bank on feigning a weakness or something to that effect and get them in close so that you can then counterattack. But again, you gotta be careful, because odds are, if they know they have the reach advantage on you, they're going to exploit that. That would be one of those weaknesses that we talked about. If you know that you don't have the wingspan that they do, you are going to have to adapt to that. You're going to have to cover that weakness and compensate. If the opponent is heavier than you, that's a whole nother problem. You are going to have to, well, I guess I shouldn't say you're going to have to, but you would probably want to try and use their momentum and their weight to your advantage, to either throw them off balance, let them get winded, let them overextend, play the fight safe. Because if they're heavier than you, odds are they're going to put more power behind their strikes, and that could be bad for you if the weight difference is significant enough. If you're a featherweight and you're fighting a heavyweight, one or two strikes could be the end of you, as far as the fight is concerned. We're not talking death matches or anything here, you know, like, that's a whole other matter. Because if your life is on the line, use a weapon. Dear God, anything is a weapon. Just grab something. It's gonna be better than whatever you're planning on doing with your hands and feet or whatever. Probably. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm off the hook. I'm giving myself the out by admitting idiocy. At least I hope that's what I'm doing. Anywho, weird noises outside. So, now that we've analyzed how many fighters, how tall they are, and how big they are, we can analyze something else, which is their fighting style. If you have any idea about martial arts, if you know anything about martial arts, you might be able to tell what kind of fighting style they're using. How much that's going to help you is going to depend on how much you know about that fighting style. If your opponent appears to be a boxer, then you can bank on them being a striker who is going to use boxing as their primary martial arts strategy, which means they're going to be very good at keeping their head guarded, and they're going to be very good at throwing strikes. If you're dealing with someone who seems to be some kind of grappler, then you're going to be very aware that you need to stay off of the goddamn ground. And I don't mean like start flying or anything like that. I mean they're going to try and take you down to the ground because that's where they're going to beat you. That's where they're going to reign. So, if at all possible, you need to stay off the ground. You need to stay standing, stay on your feet, and keep them from taking you down. That's going to be their goal, is to get you on the ground and put you in a submission hold of some kind, if they're a grappler. So, you know, identify the fighting style if you can. So in that respect, if you're hoping to win a fight, the very first thing you can do is just educate yourself on fighting. It's kind of ironic coming from someone making this video about being an idiot and talking about fighting, but that's my advice. Get educated. Not like me, but just generally educated. You would be amazed at the difference it makes in education just watching some YouTube videos and reading some Wikipedia articles. And I know people are probably going to cringe hard at me saying that because, yeah, YouTube videos aren't always the best way to educate yourself, and Wikipedia can be edited by anyone. It's also constantly monitored by a very professional team of like article keepers who will fix any edits that are not at least the very closest thing to truth or fact that we have available in the world. So the can be edited by anyone claim that people make all the time is mostly nonsense. Doesn't really matter. Oh. Moving on. So now that we've mostly got the analyze step taken care of, now that we're 30 fucking minutes into this video, god damn it, we can move to the make a plan part of the video. And that's kind of already been a little bit touched on through some of the things I've mentioned, whether it be feigning an attack to try and bait your opponent. That's making a plan. You know, you are planning to take advantage of them being too arrogant, being overconfident. That's your plan. You're making that plan. That's your strategy for the fight. Other various strategies might include turtling is another strategy, and that's might just be some video game topic or talk that doesn't really apply to real fighting. I don't know, but the general plan when turtling is to tank the hits and let your opponent get tired and then just finish them off, basically. The problem with this strategy is that you have to be able to take the hits. In any strategy that you go into when it comes to fighting, you're going to get hit. You are not Floyd Mayweather. You are not going to dodge every single strike. You might get lucky, and that might be what happens. But ultimately, you need to expect that you're going to get hit, and you need to be ready to be hit. You need to be ready to recover from that hit, and you need to be ready to counterattack after that hit. Because if your opponent hits you and then realizes that they did significant damage, that they did, that it was a good strike and it landed true, they're probably going to collapse on you and take advantage of that. to push the assault, so to speak, and try and win the fight. Once they have their opening, there's no reason for them to continue to play it safe, unless they just really want to be cautious that way. Some people are going to over-respect you, especially if there's a significant size gap. You know, if you're a lot bigger than them and they get a good hit in, there's a good chance they're not going to capitalize on it, simply because, you know, they don't know for sure how true that hit really did land. You could be faking it, you could be feigning. It kind of gets into like a psychological, like, mind game kind of thing, because it's just like, did that hit really matter? Are they faking it? Are they faking that hit really mattering? You know, like, and it kind of goes like a back and forth thing. I am so sorry, everyone. The yawning is probably super annoying. I don't know what to tell you about it, but anywho, the other thing is, like, going back to the analyze step. With analyzing yourself, you don't want to just focus on your weakness, you also want to focus on your strength. So if you know you are really, really good at something, or you know that you are really, really strong at something, or fast, whatever, take advantage of that. Know that that is your thing, and know when to apply it. If you know that you have a really, really, really strong hook, for example, then wait until that chin is exposed, and then get that hook in. And that sounds stupid and simple, but it is stupid and simple. Fighting isn't always a smart thing. You don't always have to be a genius to win a fight. And most of the time, you won't be. Most of the time, the people winning the fights are simply the people who are bigger and stronger and faster. And it's just that simple. I think I've said that earlier at a few different points. So just keep that in mind, that if you're not bigger and stronger and faster, you're already at a clear disadvantage, and just being smart might not be enough. Just knowing what to do might not be enough. Even if you analyze to the best of your ability, make really, really great plans, make backup plans and contingencies, and respect your opponent, you could still lose. You could do everything right and still lose, and you need to accept that too. Going into the fight, you need to accept that. Yeah. So the other thing is, you kind of need to, this is another thing I probably should have covered at the beginning, but assess the situation when it comes to the fight. Is this like a scheduled fight? Like, is this a, like, actual, like, you know, octagon style ring match where you are actually trying to contest each other in a organized event of some sort? Or are you just having a brawl with someone that pissed you off at a bar, or maybe scrapping with you know, someone that said the wrong thing about your lover, or, you know, whatever. Assess the situation and kind of determine what type of fight you're going into, and that will kind of set the tone for the fight, so to speak. Because obviously, if it's not like a really, really serious fight where, like, someone could die, then you don't need to you don't need to put that kind of effort into the fight. You know, if it is just a regular match that's not even on the books, or not even being televised, never recorded or anything, it's just a sparring match for that matter, you don't need to go all out and just, like, try and kill the person with every punch. Certainly put effort in, you know, like, you don't want to disrespect your opponent, but at the same time, you know, don't try and, like, literally knock their head off their shoulders in a sparring match. I think that goes without saying, or at least I hope it does. But anywho, yeah. Momentum is your friend, is another little tidbit of fighting science, I guess. So if your opponent is in motion coming towards you, their defense is automatically lower than it normally is when they're just in a standing position. They're more vulnerable to being grappled. They're more vulnerable to being counterattacked. They are more vulnerable in pretty much every sense of the word vulnerable. The only way that they are more powerful and not more vulnerable is in the sense that it is going to be more difficult to stop them going the direction that they're going. You can redirect them, or you can even make them stumble in the same direction they're going, or you can God damn it, you can take the hit and stop the momentum entirely, but then you're taking the damage from their momentum. And the same goes with your momentum. You're not off the hook just because you're not the opponent. If you are in motion, you are also more vulnerable. So there's a certain degree of risk that you take when you commit to an attack, when you commit to a strike, when you commit to an engagement. You could have that motion that you're making taken advantage of. So be aware of that and know when to back up, know when to retreat, know when to cancel the engagement. And also know that the moment you are going to attempt to end an engagement, end a fight, well, not a fight, but end the actual up close part of a fight, know that when you retreat, when you take your steps back, when you escape your opponent's wingspan, they are probably going to try and capitalize on that, because the moment you decide, I'm backing up, like I've had enough of this, I'm getting tired, they know, or they probably know, at least, if they're any kind of good fighter at all, that you are doing so because you are vulnerable, you want space, whatever. Obviously, there is the chance that you're backing up to bait them. But odds are, if your intent was to bait them, you would have started with that. You wouldn't have began the engagement and then retreated to try and bait them. Instead, you would have let them come to you and then baited them. It's not very typical for someone to begin an engagement and then try and flee the engagement and then use the flee as the bait. I'm sure it's been done, and I'm sure it's probably a pretty good strategy because it's not what people expect. That's actually probably one of the most powerful fighting styles, is just doing unconventional things. That's a big reason why, and this is probably just a lot of movies for the most part, it's a big reason why Drunken Fist is respected as an actual form of martial art, because the body becomes so fluid and unorthodox that it begins to be really hard for a traditional fighter or martial artist to understand how to read the body. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the style of martial arts is just that much more effective if the user is indeed intoxicated to some degree, because it is going to escalate the potency of that unorthodox movement. style of movement. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of another tip, so to speak, is just be unorthodox, be crazy, commit chaos. Don't do what they expect you to do, but then you have to know what they expect you to do in order to not do it, and then maybe they expect you to do what they don't expect. It's the psychology of fighting is something people could probably talk about until the ends of the earth. I mean, look at me. I'm 40 minutes in and I have no idea what I'm talking about. Alright, I should probably wrap this video up and go to bed so that I can work tomorrow. Today, actually. It's already light outside. But, anywho, yeah, so this has pretty much just been an idiot talking about fighting, which is something he has no idea anything about. I have some basic understanding of biology and physics, and that's pretty much what I'm going off of. So, if it sounded like an idiot talking out his ass, that's pretty much what it was. And on the offhand, or on the off chance that you actually are somewhat educated on the matter, or experienced on the matter, and you actually thought that I said some insightful or intelligent things, leave a like and a comment and let me know, because I have no way of knowing what I don't know. I guess it would just be nice. It would be nice to be told, like, yeah, that actually was good advice, or that actually was a good tip. You're not entirely stupid or an idiot. That might actually work. Again, though, I want to stress, 42 minutes into this video, this is not meant to be like actual advice. I'm not trying to tell you how to fight. I am just trying to showcase how I believe one would want to fight if they were to be successful, without having ever been in a fight. Which is also to say, this is not how I would fight. Certain elements, sure, but a lot of the advice I'm giving probably wouldn't even work for me, based on my own limitations. Now, I guess the real elephant in the room for this video is, do I believe I am a good fighter, or would be a good fighter? Yes and no. I think that I have potential. I think that's something I think is a fair statement. I think my brain is generally pretty good at learning, and I think learning is probably one of the most important parts of fighting. Learning from your mistakes, and learning from other people who know better than you. It's one of the few things on this planet where I would actually confidently say you should always listen to the experts. Because if you've had success fighting, then you've had success fighting. There's no bullshitting that. You can't bullshit fighting. You either are good or you're not. There's no way to be, like a fake expert of fighting. Unless somehow, I guess, this ends up ballooning into a huge thing where people think I'm actually smart about this. But I guess I would temper expectations with that and say that if this actually does end up going viral, I had no expectations of it doing so. I'm just rambling at this point. Anything else I need to cover real quick before we sign off? Nope, don't think so. Yeah, so if you like this video and you want to see more videos of the same kind of nature of me just talking out my ass about something I have no idea about, go ahead and drop a comment and let me know what you think I should cover next. Maybe I'll cover cooking. You know, I'm a total idiot about cooking. Or maybe I'll do camping and outdoorsman survival stuff. You know, another thing I have absolutely no clue about. That might be fun, if you think so. I don't know. Anywho, it is 7:30, and I think that is pretty much my cue. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you didn't take it too seriously. Have a great day, and be safe out there. And remember to respect your opponent. And you can take that outside of the fighting context, too. It will be helpful in pretty much every walk of life. Respect your opponent. Don't be overconfident. The fight isn't over until it's over.